Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was White Dragon of Heaven? Part 1. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time let's get into the video. Naruto Uzumaki, the last of his clan and current wielder of the mid-tier Longinus Divine Dividing. At a young age, Naruto had his most precious people taken from him, both his parents Minato and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze died giving their lives for him. Having spent 5 wonderful years with them, Naruto could not have been happier in his short time in the world, but all good things came to an end, his went down in flames. A fire consumed his home, his parents were unable to do anything but save him, unable to save themselves before the fire consumed their home. Naruto was young and details of that night were burned into his mind and he could not forget a single detail. How could he? That was the day he had lost everything that he deemed precious. On that day, Naruto found feathers of black raining from the skies, he did not know what they were but he would later on. At the age of 5, he was later on taken away by the authorities and sent to an orphanage where he resided for an entire year. Then someone came for him, a man by the name of Dulio Jesueldo. Dulio was a young man with blonde hair, green eyes, and was dressed in priest clothes. He had been traveling around Japan for some tasty cuisines that he had not tasted and found a powerful source of magic in this area. Imagine his surprise when he found a young boy too small for his age, with such a powerful source of magic residing in his body. Dulio then proceeded to adopt him, there's no doubt about it, this was the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Though Dulio knew that Minato and Kushina would not have wanted him to get involved with the supernatural world, so that was why they had plans for him in the orphanage rather than the church. Even if it was against their decisions and wishes, Dulio knew that Naruto would be later bothered by one of the other two Phaeacians later on, and it was his duty to help his fallen friend's child. Minato was known as the Yellow Flash, a moniker given to him due to his amazing speeds with his technique the Flying Thunder God. Flying Thunder God Hiraishin utilized the Uzumaki clan's amazing sealing magic, allowing him to pass through space and time traveling to areas where he marked with his seal. Such a technique took quite a lot out of him the first time he used it, but he had over time mastered it to a degree where he could easily wipe out massive groups of enemy soldiers. Kushina was known for a similar thing, having contracted a fox at a young age she was able to fight alongside it. But it was not just any fox either, it was a QB. The fox with 9 tails were rare among yokai, with its power rivaling ultimate class devils. Not only did she have power of such a beast, but she also was very skilled in sealing as well. Both were known seal masters. Sealing was such a rare skill that many factions and supernatural groups feared them for their powers with simple ink and paper. And with such fear, they were marked as enemies of many supernatural groups, and if Naruto was known to the world he would be hunted down. Naruto was unknown to the church as he spent his time traveling with Dulio. They spent a majority of his childhood traveling around the world, tasting fine cuisine from all cultures. Once Naruto was old enough, Dulio decided it was time for him to learn of supernatural beings. Naruto for one did not believe him until he was shown literal proof. Dulio did just that, showing off the power of his sacred gear, Zenith Tempest. It was amusing to see Naruto so awed from the power he had displayed, but it was on that day that Dulio had learned of Naruto's sacred gear. The trip to England had ended differently than he had hoped. On their trip a band of devils had attacked them thinking them as enemies, and Dulio had been occupied with a few devils. One had engaged Naruto, who was not even adept in the arts of magic. In a desperate attempt to escape, Naruto had called forth a power hidden inside his body, the power of a dragon, not just any dragon, but the White Dragon Emperor himself, Albion. Dulio had swore to Minato and Kushina that day to train Naruto to the best of his abilities, so he was ready for what the supernatural world had to offer. Naruto was a quick learner, that phrase did not do him any justice, as Naruto learned whatever he threw at him with such vigor and eagerness that Dulio had to double his training. No, Naruto stood at the age of 17 above average height and looking more and more like his father every day. Though appearances belonged to his father, Naruto still held that fiery temper from his mother. Dulio had managed to quell his fiery temper to a certain degree, but Naruto would still lose control when he felt the ones precious to him threatened. His personality was another one. Being around Dulio for a majority of his short life he had developed a laid-back personality. Having possession of Divine Dividing, Dulio knew that it was a matter of time before he church found out about him. Even with all his power and influence as the most powerful exorcist, he could not keep them away from Naruto for very long. Even if he did not wish for Naruto to be caught up in it, there was no choice but to do whatever he could to help him now. Naruto had pieced everything together when Dulio had told him about the supernatural world. Those black feathers that resembled crow feathers belonged to only a single faction, the fallen angels. That it ignited a fire in his heart, the desire to find whoever had killed his parents and find answers of his own. It was better than having others tell him their very own answers. Albion, the vanishing dragon residing in his sacred gear, was intrigued about his new possessor. Being different from others, the young Uzumaki held something that some of his past possessors did not have, the potential to become one of the greatest. Having Uzumaki blood flowing in his veins and magic power that dwarfed many, Albion could not have asked for a better possessor. Once he met with his rival, he would win the battle. There was little doubt in Albion's mind that Naruto would and could become the most powerful White Dragon Emperor from past, present, and future. The meeting between host and dragon was a bit strange. Naruto had appeared in a throne room with white columns leading toward a pure white throne. Having no idea why he was here, Naruto felt compelled to take a seat upon the throne, and that was what he had done. The cold surface sent shivers up his back, but power also coursed through his entire being, filling him with overwhelming power that seemed unreal for anyone to possess. A bright blue sphere appeared before him, a shower of blue particles fell from the sphere. Naruto reached out and grabbed hold of it, and that was when he and Albion had met for the first time. The two had a strange relationship that later on evolved into a partnership between dragon and human. It was odd how powerful the duo could become once they had worked out a partnership together. Naruto was able to unlock the forbidden stage of his sacred gear at a young age. Unlocking the armor of the White Dragon Emperor, Naruto achieved Balance Breaker for the first time during his training sessions with Dulio. Such a feat was astounding for him. After all, he was 12, for crying out loud. Able to access Balance Breaker was amazing for anyone, but a 12-year-old could do it was just amazing. Albion was very pleased to see his host achieving such feats at such a young age. His host was truly powerful for his age. Albion couldn't wait until they met the Red One and finally battled it out. With a host like Naruto, they could not lose. Later on, Naruto would meet Michael when he was 15 of age. The Archangel was shocked that Dulio had kept such a secret from him, going against Minato, and Kushina's wishes did not sit well with him. Final wishes of two of his most powerful and loyal members of church he had wished were followed through, but Dulio did have a logical argument, as Naruto would be in danger if he was ignorant. It was truly complicated situation in which what Minato and Kushina had set up for Naruto would contradict with what they desired for their child. Michael would soon steal his resolve and accept Naruto into the church as an exorcist, though he did not wish to go against Minato and Kushina's wishes for their child. He would have been in danger if he did not. "Naruto, get the door," Dulio called out as he returned his attention back to his meal. Hearing a grumble from the other room, Naruto entered the dining room with a priest following him from behind. "Can't you come back when I'm done with my food?" Naruto had grown taller since his years with Dulio, standing above average height for his age. Naruto had kept his spiky blonde hair similar to his father's, but had cut off his side bangs. His blue eyes shone with boredom as he crossed his arms and waited. Naruto's outfit consisted of an orange t-shirt with loose black pants and a jacket over his shirt. Orange, being his favorite color, was always present in his outfit, though at times he was forced into those annoying church clothing. "I am sorry, Dulio-sama, but Mitchell-sama has requested you and Naruto-san to meet him immediately." The priest responded with a bow of his head. A groan escaped Dulio's mouth as he nodded in acknowledgement and placed his chopsticks down and walked out of the house with Naruto trailed behind him. "Naruto-kun, Dulio-kun, it is great to see you again." Michael greeted with the usual kind smile on his face. Looking at them, he decided it was best to tell them of the situation first. "Naruto-kun, I am sending you on a mission to Kuoh town, Japan." Seeing the curious expression on his face, Michael decided to elaborate. "There is a slight problem there, you see. Kokabiel from the fallen faction has decided it was necessary for more war, so it is best to send you to stop him before war actually comes." "Dulio-kun, I cannot send you. If I do, it would cause more harm to the situation rather than help. Two of our young swordsmen are there collecting the missing Excalibur pieces, and I fear they are in danger. Also, if you could, Naruto-kun, please stop Kokabiel before he spreads some classified information." "I understand, Michael-sama, I shall leave immediately." Naruto replied as he got up and walked out of the church. Once he was outside, a pair of white dragon wings appeared on his back as he took off into the skies, flying towards Japan. "Albion, what do you think about our assignment? This could be interesting." Albion responded as his wings shone brighter as his partner spoke to him. Naruto smiled at that as he continued towards Japan. Albion was a good partner, and he could not have asked for a better dragon residing in his sacred gear. "Naruto, do you sense that?" "Yeah." Naruto replied, his eyebrows raised as his head stayed looking in Japan's general direction, and a larger smile formed on his face. Though the energy signature was weak, Naruto was certain it was Dragon, the boosted gear. "Looks like we finally found the Red One, eh, Albion?" "Ha ha ha ha. Finally the Red One has been found, partner." Albion responded in a joy-filled tone. "His host is weak, such a weak signature is nothing compared to yours, partner. The only reason we found his energy source was due to erected dome. Without it we could not have found him. Such a weak energy signature we could have easily passed by without knowing it was him." "I think you got a little arrogant, partner." Naruto commented as he returned his attention to flying. Besides, being weak isn't such a bad thing. How could I not, partner? Albion questioned with an amused tone. With you as my partner we could surpass all and become the greatest white dragon emperor to ever grace the earth. Releasing a sigh, Naruto kept flying, but he could not help but smile at Albion's words of praise, though it seemed like the vanishing dragon was ignoring his other statement. Over the years, Albion and him had developed a relationship built solely on trust. Naruto had allowed Albion to control his body when it was needed and allowed him to control the flow of power he would receive from the dragon. Albion in return was always giving him power that was needed and worked with him as an equal. Dragons were prideful creatures that did not bow to anything lower than their existence, but Albion had acknowledged Naruto, and thus they were equals in their partnership. It was shocking how much Albion enjoyed such a partnership. It seemed as if Naruto was a few of the humans that received his respect as well. Ria's Gremory held the appearance of a beautiful young woman in her late teens with white skin, blue eyes and a buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature was her long beautiful crimson hair that reached down to her thighs, with a single strand of hair standing up, and also her hair had loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. Being a Gremory, she had not been exposed to many situations in which she felt actual fear, but here she was with her peerage helpless before one of the leaders of Grigori. Her peerage consisted of many members. There was Akeno her queen, Yudo her knight, Kaneko her rook, and Issei her pawn. Akeno was a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure around the same age as Ria's, with very long black hair and violet eyes. Her black hair was usually tied in a long ponytail, which reached down to her legs with two strands sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. She had on a shrine maiden's outfit. Udo held the appearance of handsome young man with short blonde hair, grey eyes, and a mole under his left eye. He was wearing the Kuoh Academy uniform without the blazer. Kaneko held an appearance of a petite girl with white hair and hazel eyes. The front of her hair had two long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while her back has a short bob cut. She too was wearing the female Kuoh Academy uniform. Issei, the final and newest member of Ria's peerage, stood at average height with short brown hair and light brown eyes. He like Kiba wore the school uniform, but he had on the blazer. There were others fighting against Kokabiel as well. Zenobia Korda, a young woman with chin-length blue hair with a green fringe on the right side and dark yellow eyes. She wore her church battle outfit, which consisted out black skin-tight short-sleeved unitard with pauldrons, matching her fingerless gloves and thigh-high leather boots. Dressed similarly was her partner Irina. Irina was a beautiful young woman with long chestnut hair and violet eyes. Her hair was tied back into twin tails. Their opponent was Kokabiel himself, a leader of Grigori. Kokabiel held the appearance of a young man with black hair. Unlike other fallen angels, he had pointy ears. Dressed in a black robe with accessories, it allowed his 5 pair of wings to be shown freely. Kokabiel was amused by those pitiful worms that were trying to oppose him. It was very amusing indeed. His plan was so close to success. All he had to do now was kill the pathetic worms standing before him now, and he could have another war. In the previous war, they could have won if it was not Azazel's intervention, but now he could start another one in which the fallen angels would win against both angel and devil. From here on out, I will start a war. I will take your heads as a gift. Even if it's only me, I will continue from where we left off. I am going to show Surziches and Michael that we, the fallen angels, are the ultimate beings. Kokabiel shouted in glee as an insane fit of laughter escaped his lips. Everyone present just looked at him in horror. Their loves were going to end here, and a war was going to break out because of the insane fallen angel. War, finally we can have war once more. Raising his arms above his head, Kokabiel formed a massive spear of light that dwarfed his entire figure, and in comparison he was an ant. Looks of horror all formed on everyone's face as they could only stare at the massive spear pointing towards them. Death was what waited for them. It was hopeless now to fight against something so massive in size that it could easily vaporize them by touch. Before Kokabiel could even launch the spear, the dome that was erected around them keeping Kokabiel from destroying Japan was shattered, and a figure shrouded in white light descended onto the ground. It can't be. Drake shouted in shock. What is it, Drake? Issei asked as he looked at his sacred gear in confusion. Is it that guy over there? Be careful around him, Issei. That is the host of my rival, and he will be your rival to come. Drake answered. It seems that the White One's host is stronger than what I imagined him to be. Who the hell are you? Kokabiel shouted his question at Naruto, who had stowed away his sacred gear, and the light that once surrounded him died down, and he stood there in his regular attire. I am Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto responded as he looked at Kokabiel with a calculative look on his face. Uzumaki, isn't that the name of that family I had killed? Kokabiel asked in a mocking tone. A sneer was on his face as a laugh escaped his lips. That look on their faces when they tried to escape with their baby. Haha. Too bad Michael didn't declare war when that happened, but it wasn't a waste of time. I got to see those pathetic humans desperately try to save themselves. Hahaha. Those feathers, Naruto murmured as his eyes widened in shock before they shifted into ones of rage. His pupils shrunk as his eyes took on a fierce look, similar to one of a dragon's. A pair of white dragon wings shot from his back and a death glare was sent at Kokabiel. Those hideous feathers were yours. Hahaha. You finally figured it out. Kokabiel gave another fit of maniacal laughter. Finally I can kill you and complete my list of Uzumakis. I'll make you pay. Naruto shouted in rage as his wings shone with power and he flew into the air. Kokabiel didn't have a chance to throw his spear as a fist connected with his jaw and sent him flying away. Divide. Draining power from his spear, Naruto felt his power rise to new levels as he directed his gaze at Kokabiel, who had recovered from his punch and was glaring at Naruto with hate-filled eyes. How dare you hit you? You filthy human. Kokabiel shouted in rage as he flew towards Naruto and a sword made of light appeared in his hands. Naruto didn't even bat an eyelash as he encased his arm in wind magic and grabbed hold of Kokabiel's blade. I am going to clip your filthy wings, you crow. Naruto yelled as he added more force to his grip on the light sword and shattered it into tiny particles of light before sending a punch at Kokabiel's stomach. Not relenting, Naruto formed a Rasengan in his other hand and slammed it on Kokabiel's back. The result of his action sent Kokabiel plummeting down towards the ground. Before Kokabiel could reach the ground, Naruto rushed down towards him, but before he could reach him, Kokabiel recovered enough to send a barrage of light spears towards him. Weaving through the spears, Naruto was forced back as more and more shot towards him. Kokabiel proceeded to create a larger and more destructive spear as he shot it towards Naruto, who had finished dodging the spears and turned to face another one flying towards him. Raising his hand, Naruto split the beam in half as he drained the energy from the attack and filled up his barely used reserves. His previous uses of magic barely used any of his magical power, thus excess magic filled his system. Albion, expel the extra magic. You got it, partner. Albion responded as the divine dividing shone brighter and blue magic particles were released from his wings and they fluttered in the air around Naruto. Oh ho, it seems like you found the one with those filthy wings, partner. Why don't we show them the power of supremacy? Let us them, Albion. Naruto said as he crossed his arms and he was consumed by a bright white light. Vanishing dragon balance breaker. Partner, finish this crow and show him what true power is. Albion said with a glee-filled tone as Naruto nodded his head in acknowledgement and began the change into his armor. Once the light died down, Naruto had white dragon armor formed around him with blue jewels decorating it. In this form, it boosted his speed, power, durability, and allowed him to use his power of divide without the 10-second limit, though temporarily it was still a very useful ability that it granted him. Looking at Kokabiel through his helmet, Naruto channeled all the rage and frustration that he had felt towards his family's demise and charged forward. His goal was Kokabiel's head. Kokabiel was not the only one shocked by Naruto's new form, Issei, and the others were as well. To see a completed balance breaker was shocking enough as it was the forbidden stage that all sacred gears possessed, but to seeing it used was not as shocking, but the power that was emitted during the transformation was what brought out their shock. Issei was most shocked out of them all. His destined rival was able to achieve something that he could not even muster at his condition now. What else was Naruto Uzumaki capable of? Prepare yourself, Kokabiel. Naruto responded as he rushed forward, but Kokabiel had already planned a way of attack as another barrage of light spears flew towards him. Vanishing from the position he was once situated, Naruto appeared before Kokabiel with a raised fist and slammed it against his face. Following up his former attack, Naruto punched Kokabiel once more with his other fist. Kokabiel retaliated with a punch of his own, but Naruto caught it before it could reach his face and began crushing his hand. Screaming in pain, Kokabiel formed a light sword in his free hand and sent it towards Naruto, who caught it with his other hand. Adding pressure to both hands, Naruto heard the familiar sounds of bones being crushed as Kokabiel's screams got louder and his blade shattered into tiny shards of light-based magic. Clenching his fist, Naruto punched Kokabiel back once more. This time Kokabiel was prepared for this as he drew a blade and went to stab him. Releasing his hold of Kokabiel, Naruto leaned back and allowed the blade to come forward. Luckily enough, he was able to dodge fast enough for the blade to reach its limited range and stop a little ways before reaching him. But that did not stop Kokabiel as a kick was planted against his chest and Naruto was pushed backwards for a good distance before he recovered and charged at Kokabiel. Like his previous attempts to charge him head first, he was met with another barrage of light spears. This time Naruto did not bother to dodge them as he took the attacks head on, but they did not even touch him as multiple magic circles appeared where the light spears were supposed to hit. Using the magic he was collecting from the light spears, Naruto compressed the collected magic into a wave of lightning that shot out from his body and moved towards Kokabiel, who was busy preparing another massive spear of light. This time he succeeded in its creation and use as Kokabiel threw it straight at Naruto, who raised his hand. Divide. The familiar sensation of his magic coursing through his entire body was felt once again as Naruto raised his hand and a basketball-sized sphere of blue magic formed in his palm, and soon wind began swirling around it, and the sphere turned into a large Fuma shuriken with the sphere in the middle. This was his Rasen shuriken. A buzzing sound was emitting from his technique, throwing the deadly technique forward. It flew straight for Kokabiel. Kokabiel merely leaned to the right, avoiding Naruto's Rasen shuriken, but he did not expect it to expand, and a massive dome of wind blades consumed him entirely. The only two ways for Naruto to use his Rasen shuriken was through Senjutsu and when he donned his scale mail. Having some sort of protection against the blades of wind that formed around the Rasengan allowed him to use that technique to its fullest. If he had used it without Senjutsu or his scale mail, his hand would have been easily gone from his body as the wind blades were too close and could easily damage him. Such an attack was powerful. It damaged people caught in its radius was at a cellular level, easily damaging nerves and possibly the ones caught in its range's ability to use magic. Once Kokabiel was seen again, his dome of wind blades had vanished, leaving behind a heavily damaged Kokabiel. Though Kokabiel could barely keep himself in the air, he was not willing to let the blonde win. He needed this war to prove his dominance. Panting heavily, Kokabiel could not even retaliate when Naruto appeared behind him and grabbed hold of his wings. Looking at Naruto in shock and fear, Kokabiel did not have time to do anything, as both his wings were ripped from his back and his feathers scattered into the wind. Kokabiel screamed in pain as he was dropped from the sky and plummeted towards the earth. Without his wings, falling from such a height would ensure death, especially being damaged by Naruto like that. Kokabiel was caught just before he touched the ground, and Naruto simply shouldered Kokabiel's heavily damaged body and prepared to fly off. "Are you going to ignore me, White One?" Drake asked from Issei's boosted G. Naruto turned to face him, and Albion decided to respond, "Of course not, Red One, but it is not time for our battle yet. Your host is too weak at the moment, and I don't think my host would like to fight someone so weak." No other words were exchanged as Naruto took off into the air with Kokabiel in hand, leaving behind a group of shocked and confused devils. "That technique of yours sure packs and punch," Dulio commented as he whistled in awe as he saw the battered Kokabiel. "Those little wind blades are quite nasty, aren't they?" It was the perfect place to test the Rasen shuriken. Naruto replied as he released a sigh of relief. Having made it back to church with Kokabiel, Naruto was now relaxing at home with Dulio there snacking as usual. "And I did not expect it to do so much damage. Now that it's completed, I have another attack added to my arsenal." "Don't you think that's a bit of an overkill?" Dulio asked as he munched on a meat bun. "Besides, your divine dividing is already dangerous enough. What is the point of making another technique that you would hardly use?" "Dulio Nai-san, you were the one to teach me that our sacred gears are tools and not to rely on them too much." Naruto responded with a wave of his hand, taking a drink of the juice Dulio had offered him earlier. Dulio was silent for some time before asking in a serious tone, "Did you do that to Kokabiel because of what he did to your parents?" "How did you?" "That's not important at the moment, Naruto. Did you or did you not?" "No, but I do admit I nearly lost control of myself," Naruto finally replied as he released another sigh. "If I really did want to make Kokabiel suffer, I would have unleashed Juggernaut Drive. The Rasen shuriken was merely for a test of its true power. To make him suffer for what he did, I would have used the true power of Albion, the true power of the White Dragon Emperor." The boosted gear and the divine dividing were complete opposites, by power and dragon alike. The boosted gear multiplied the user's power and gave it away. The divine dividing split the enemy's power and gave it to the user. Their dragon spirits residing in each sacred gear were no exception either, Drake the Welsh Dragon and Albion the Vanishing Dragon. Both dragon emperors in their own right with opposite sets of abilities that fought for dominance over the other. It seemed what they said about opposites was true, they did attract, but not in the way people thought. For centuries both dragons fought, through their hosts they continued their battle, supremacy versus domination, an endless battle that stretched since the dawn of time itself. "Partner, such a stage is impossible to maintain without proper control of the energy flow that is sent into your body," Albion said as he reprimed his partner for his stubbornness. "Adding another source of energy into your system while in scale mail could easily kill you. If you were a normal human like that Haidu, then your body would have burned out from all that magical power already." "I know, Albion, but if I can get it to work then our power could increase by dramatic levels," Naruto responded as he panted softly. His body was tired from his constant training sessions. Though tired and his body hurt, Naruto pushed on and willed himself to continue. "Besides, we trained harder than this before and my body has been in worse condition. Nothing one night's sleep can't fix." "That stubbornness is going to be the end of you, Naruto," Albion replied with a sigh. "Then again, this power will help us beat Drake all that faster, so let's do this thing, partner." What's a damaged body compared to beating Drake in our final battle? I am glad you have your priorities straight, Albion. Naruto said in a dry tone, his face matched his tone quite well. Naruto released a sigh and began channeling his magic around him once more. Determination had not wavered and Naruto prepared once more. This time we won't fail. Well, we failed. Naruto said in a cheerful tone as his wounds suffered from his previous training session were being bandaged by Dulio. Though his wounds were so severe that they seemed unlikely to be caused from a mere training session, Naruto had been through worse, and all it took was a few days of rest, and his body would have healed, and then his training could continue. You know, for some combat genius you seem to get hurt more than others during training. Dulio spoke up suddenly, seeing the annoyed expression that Naruto sent him. Dulio decided to continue. Michael-sama said to meet him in the church when your training session was over. Hi. Naruto replied as he sat up from his seated position on the couch and winced slightly as pain erupted from his bandaged wounds. Do you know why Michael-sama wanted to see me for? Dulio shook his head in response as Naruto nodded in acceptance and walked out of their home without another word. Whistling a cheerful tune, Naruto made his way into the church after a short walk from where he and Dulio resided. Once he entered the church, Naruto spotted Michael standing there with his usual smile plastered on the archangel's face. Naruto-kun, it is great to see you again. Michael said with his usual smile beaming towards Naruto. I am glad you had taken care of Kokabiel before he could have started a war between the three factions. You did well. Thank you, Michael-sama. Naruto replied with a smile of his own, though he wished he had beaten Kokabiel faster, it was no issue as he had done what had been ordered of him. But I fear Kokabiel was able to speak of our lord's fate before you could reach Kuoh on time. Michael said as his smile dropped a little before he turned to face Naruto, who seemed to have been shocked slightly by the news he had just delivered. Do not worry, Naruto-kun, it was not your fault, we were a good distance away from Japan, and you could not reach there in time. Naruto accepted the answer as he gave Michael his attention once more. Michael, seeing that, took it as a sign to continue. But that is not the reason I have brought you here. The reason I have brought you here has to do with your encounter with the Red Dragon Emperor. I have feared this time would come when you would meet him. Now that you have, your final battle against the Red Dragon Emperor has been confirmed. This is my question to you, Naruto-kun, do you wish to fight the Red Dragon Emperor? Thinking about the question for a second, Naruto truly had to ask himself if he really did desire to fight the Red Dragon Emperor. This battle between dragons was fought many times before, yet came to no decisive conclusion. All Naruto wanted to do was get stronger. With strength he could protect the ones precious to him, so fighting a dragon equal to his very own partner would likely help in his path, so his answer was yes. Opening his mouth, Naruto spoke in a confident tone, Michael-sama, the answer to your question is yes. Do explain, Naruto-kun. Michael replied with a curious tone. To protect my precious people I will get stronger. Naruto said, his tone still held that confidence from before. And to get stronger I will defeat the Welsh dragon. I feared you would say that. Michael sighed, but his smile seemed to brighten, his hands shone with a golden light and soon a blade manifested before him. It was beautiful golden blade with a guard resembling a dragon's claw. Grabbing hold of the blade, Michael laid it out before him and offered it to Naruto. This is Ascalon, a holy sword wielded by Saint Peter himself, a blade known for its dragon-slaying capabilities. Though we do not wish for you to fight against the Red Dragon Emperor, I cannot stop you either. This predestined battle shall happen eventually, and since I cannot stop you, so I shall help you instead. Naruto was beyond shocked, his eyes were the size of dinner plates. How could he not be shocked? The church was granting him one of the most prized and well-guarded weapons in their arsenal. Michael-sama, thank you. Taking hold of Ascalon, Naruto began testing the blade's balance in his hand. Finding it perfect, he bowed his head in gratitude, and Naruto couldn't help but smile. Michael watched the scene play out, and his smile widened, though it was true heaven did not wish for further conflict, but for Naruto he would be an exception. It was true that they had truly desired to help Naruto against the Red Dragon Emperor. But Ascalon needed to be wielded, and seeing that one of their own holy sword users knew the truth about their lord's fate, they needed to boost their strength to maintain a balance between factions. Albion, what can we do about the blade? Naruto asked as now sat in the training grounds with Ascalon in his hands. Such a powerful weapon, now we have a way to slay other dragons. Albion commented as he thought about his partner's question. Naruto waited patiently for his dragon to answer his question. Though we are able to add it into the divine dividing, I do not think it would be any help to have the blade stuck inside the divine dividing. Naruto, I recommend training with that holy sword until we strengthen your body to handle the extra strain the blade will add when combining its dragon-slaying capabilities into our attacks. Naruto nodded as Ascalon vanished from his hands in a shower of white light. Leaning against a tree, Naruto spoke, Albion, how much extra power can I contain without it straining my body? Currently, your body is above a normal human's, and your magic reserves are massive, dwarfing even ultimate-class devils. I would have to say 10 times your normal amount, taking in consideration your Uzumaki body. Albion replied. With Ascalon in our arsenal, we can double our energy intake and use the blade as a medium for excess magic power. That would increase our performance and power output in battle by a dramatic degree, but I would need help training with Ascalon. Naruto mused, though he was not a regular genius, he was a genius in combat. Having the mental fortitude to think of plans on the spot, though he did not seem to apply into academics. Besides, Ascalon is a holy sword, the power we can store in that blade would be very useful in the future. How come you never used those words before? Albion questioned, knowing that it would annoy Naruto. Then again, you know what humans say, there's a first time for everything. You picking a fight, you old bag of scales. Naruto responded instantly, his eyebrows twitched in annoyance. What are you going to do about it, you blonde idiot? Albion questioned, mirth clearly audible in his voice. I can't believe that Michael was dumb enough to appoint you the general of the fourth pillar. I'm gonna use Ascalon on you, you old bag of scales. Naruto said his annoyance seemed to have risen to new levels. How are you gonna reach me, I'm just a spirit. Albion said in a mocking tone, first time glad of his lack of a physical body. And old bag of scales. You need more insults. You're impossible. Naruto shouted, annoyed with the situation entirely. He couldn't just walk away, Albion was literally in him, so he could do nothing to avoid the annoying dragon. Twilight healing, a rare sacred gear with only a few wielders of such a useful tool, having the ability to heal all devils, angels, humans, and fallen angels alike, it was very sought after. Having been manifesting in a young girl by the name of Asia Argento, who was seen as a blessed maiden when she had healed a sickened man. Though her good deeds and in kind heart she attract both good and bad attention, from villagers she was seen as a blessed maiden, and to a certain devil, she was seen as another maiden to break. An attempt to turn Asia into a heretic, Astaroth had failed when one Naruto Uzumaki came into play. Having his plan foiled by the blonde exorcist, he had managed to escape with a large scar on his chest dealt by Naruto, who was investigating a devil in the area. Having been saved from being seen as a heretic, she had been moved into another area due to the fear of the devil who tried to turn her. Being sent to Vatican, though Asia did not know why she was sent to such an important place, but she had a suspicion that it related to Naruto. Spending a good few years there, she was once more sent off to another location, this time Japan. Though she did not know why, Asia was happy to continue spreading the teachings of the Lord. Now here she was, being led towards the church by a nice young man that had helped her earlier. Issei Haidu was his name. Thank you, Haidu-san. Asia thanked him with a bow. No problem, Asia-chan. Issei responded nervously as his eyes were glued on the foreign beauty standing before him. It was a dream come true, a blonde beauty was not something he would have expected to bump into during his time walking through the park, but her she was standing right in front of him. The god of perverts was truly looking out for him. If you are not too busy, come visit me anytime, Haidu-san. Asia said with as she gave him an innocent smile. Asia thought about her time here, and then her eyes widened when she remembered what the priest had ordered. Oh no, Haidu-san, do you by any chance go to Kuoh Academy? Yes. Issei said a little too loudly as he looked at her with a face filled with joy. His perverted side was having a field day, not only was he in a peerage with 3 beauties, and now a foreign beauty was attending his school. Hey, oh no, if it isn't any trouble, can I walk with you tomorrow? Asia asked a bit shyly. Looking up, she noticed an odd look on Issei's face, but she decided to ignore it. Of course, Asia-chan. Issei replied with his joy-filled tone still present. The next morning Naruto was out of his casual clothing, and now his outfit consisted of a white shirt with a black and orange tie, and black pants with black boots. Over his white shirt was a long black coat that reached down to his shins with golden fringes on the sides of his coat. His outfit seemed more militaristic compared to what he was used to, but it was either this or his priest robes, which was not something Naruto would wear if he had a choice. Having been given orders by Michael to accompany him and Lady Gabriel to the meeting between factions, Naruto had to be dressed in his formal robes that are his general's attire. It was obvious what he chose. And it was the only formal outfit that he could sneak orange into. Being appointed as the 4th pillar general, Naruto took up that position after his father. All pillars had their own uniforms and a piece of clothing that stood out among the others, but his father had changed the entire outfit entirely. Normally, they were regular priest robes with a golden badge that held the Roman numeral IV etched on it. Minato was never one for robes, the Namikaze had a thing for long coats, and that was what he had changed the outfit to. Naruto taking over did not wish to change his father's choice of outfit and kept with it, though he was not one to be formal, it was something he would tolerate to keep his father's memories in place. Gabriel-sama, it is time to go. Naruto said, catching the archangel. Gabriel was one of the 4 seraphs of heaven. She was an extremely beautiful woman with curly blonde hair and a voluptuous figure. Arriving early, Naruto was still seated in the car as they waited for a little, while allowing Gabriel to decide on their next course of action. Spotting Asia walking with the Gremory group, Naruto decided it was best to make himself known. Naruto turned to Gabriel and spoke in a respectful tone, "Gabriel-sama, may I go and speak to Asia-chan?" "Of course, Naruto-kun." Gabriel answered, as another smile graced her beautiful features. Giving her a nod in thanks, the door to his right was opened by one of his officers, and he stepped out of the car and began making his way towards the front of Kuoh Academy. 2 of his officers followed him a few steps behind and readied themselves if the group of devils tried anything towards their pillar general. His appearance had surprised the entire peerage and brought fear and dread into their hearts. The only one who seemed to have completely different emotions was Asia, as a bright smile formed on her face. His 2 officers following him were known as Graphle and Hecate. Both of them were dressed in the typical 4th pillar attire, and both had black hair. Graphle kept his hair short and spiked, while Hecate allowed his hair to grow messy. Both of them were his most trusted officers, and their loyalty towards him were undeniable, as he knew they would willingly die for him in a heartbeat. "That's him, partner, the White Dragon Emperor." Drake forced himself to be heard as Issei's right arm turned shifted into the boosted gear. Bringing nervousness to the group, Riaz decided it was best to proceed with words. "What are you doing here, White Dragon Emperor?" Riaz asked as her eyes narrowed and she prepared for the worst. Though she highly doubted that they could put up much of a fight against someone who had defeated Kokabiel as if he was nothing. Her entire peerage was tensed and ready to spring into action if the situation deemed necessary. "Are you here for Issei-kun?" "I am not here for the Red One." Naruto responded as he focused his attention of Asia, and a smile graced his features. Asia's smile grew larger as she caught sight of Naruto's smile. "I am here for Asia-chan." The entire peerage turned to face the new addition in their group. Asia blushed slightly from the attention she was receiving and looked down on the group, avoiding all gazes placed upon her. Issei seemed to have reacted to that, pointing a finger at Naruto. He spoke in an angry tone, "What do you want Asia-chan for? Do not speak to Naruto-sama that way, you disgusting devil." One of his guards shouted as he glared at Issei, who seemed to have slightly cowered under the glare sent his way. Then his eyes set on Zenobia, who was turning away from the group with a shamed look on her face. He spoke in utter rage, "And you traitor. How dare you show your face from what you have done? How dare you insult a member of my family?" Riaz glared at the guard who had spoken before. Even with a glare sent his way, he did not seem to falter, and he continued to glare at both Issei and Zenobia. "That is enough, Graphle," Naruto said, stopping the situation before it got out of hand. Graphle hesitated for a bit before mumbling a sorry towards Naruto and remained silent, though that did not stop his glares he was sending at Issei or Zenobia. "Riaz-san, I must apologize for my guard's outburst. Please do not take this as an offense, but Graphle merely has a hatred for devils and traitors of the church." Zenobia had tried hiding behind Kiba when she spotted Naruto, but she could not do it fast enough as she was spotted right away by the guards flanking Naruto. Facing someone like Naruto, who was a pillar general after her defection from the church, was emotionally taxing. Not only that, but he was one of the few that she had looked up to during her time training. Hearing news of the young general's accomplishment, she could not help but admire him for his power and success in battle, and now facing her hero, after she had been turned into a devil, mixed guilt and shame into her already confused set of emotions. "Where are my manners? It seems we have not yet formally introduced ourselves," Naruto said as he held a thinking pose before smiling at the group and spoke once more. "Well, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and my guards here are Graphle and Hecate. I am Riaz Gremory, and these behind me are my peerage members." Riaz responded as she placed emphasis on her last name, Gremory. Though she knew Asia was not a member of her peerage, she decided to ignore it. Naruto Uzumaki did not need to know, even if he seemed familiar with her. Graphle snorted at that. He found it amusing that the devil was trying to stand on even grounds with his general. Turning to Naruto, who seemed bored of this situation already, Graphle saw the slight nod Naruto gave him. Graphle turned to the group once more and spoke in a glee-filled tone, "HMPH, we don't have time for you devils, we must go." Naruto turned around and began walking away, but he stopped himself and turned to face Asia once more and smiled at her for the last time. "It was nice seeing you again, Asia-chan." Hours had passed as Naruto spent the rest of his time at Kuoh with Gabriel looking around the town. Nothing seemed to have happened as he accompanied her into shops and gave her his opinion on matters of clothing. Now it was officially time for the meeting between factions. Escorting Gabriel towards the designated meeting room, Gabriel had once more looped her arms around his. Once they had reached the wooden double doors, Grapple and Hecate both pushed the doors open for the two to enter. Inside the room, there was a massive circular table there with chairs filled with leaders from all 3 factions. Seated on the fallen angel's side was a tall man in his late 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs and a black goatee. On the devil's side sat two figures. There was a handsome man with an appearance of his early 20s with long crimson hair and blue eyes, very similar to Ria's from before. Naruto assumed they were both gremlins. Next to that man was a beautiful girl with a childish body and long black hair tied back into twin tails with blue eyes. Seeing Gabriel, Michael smiled at her, and the woman with the childish body had her eyes wide open and she seemed lost for words. Issei on the other hand did not have any trouble ogling the beautiful blonde that had just entered the room. Naruto escorted her to her seat and pulled it back for her. Seating herself, Gabriel flashed Naruto a smile, and he nodded in response before walking a few paces backwards and stood behind Michael and Gabriel, with Graffel and Hecate flanking him. "Well, it looks like our meeting can begin." The man with the golden bangs spoke up as he still looked bored. "Azazel, how do you explain yourself for what one of your subordinates had done?" Michael asked as he turned his attention onto the newly named Azazel. Everyone else followed his example and looked at him waiting for a response. Kokabiel acted on his own. "I have nothing to say." Azazel responded with an impassive wave of his hand. The others accepted the answer reluctantly, and once more silence descended upon the room, none knowing what to say, so Azazel decided to speak once more. "Well, let's get on with it. We were here to sign a peace treaty, right?" Shock decorated everyone's faces, but Naruto's and his officers, they had managed to keep their composure, but they too were shocked by the news. Michael nodded his head and spoke, "Yes, that was the purpose for this meeting between factions. We are on low numbers and if we continue we could likely wipe each other out. What do you say, Surzich's Dono?" "I agree, Michael Dono." The redhead replied before turning to Rias and speaking once again. "I would like Rias Gremory to recite the events that had happened." "Hi, Lucifer Sama." Ria said she knew when it was times to be respectful and when not to be, and at times like this, it was definitely one of those situations where he had to be. Kokabiel attacked with two followers. Sona Citri and her peerage had decided to erect a barrier around Kuoh, preventing Kokabiel from escaping and destroying Japan. My peerage and I battled against him, but we were unable to do little to no harm to him whatsoever. That was when Naruto-san showed up. He had single-handedly stopped Kokabiel himself and took him away. It seems Kokabiel was acting on his own. Gabriel muttered before she nodded her head and accepted that. Michael was one to do so as well. They were not the only ones as the devils all nodded their head in acceptance as well. "But before we go ahead and sign our peace treaty, I want to ask Red Dragon Emperor, what do you think about this?" Azazel asked as he directed his question towards Issei, who seemed nervous about the attention he was receiving, but he thought about it nonetheless. Issei continued to ponder and Azazel decided to speak. "If we have peace, then the number one priority would be repopulating, so you would have to spend most of your days with your butchu in bed making the next generation." "Yes. Yes. Peace, I want to make babies with butchu." Issei shouted in glee as a perverted grin plastered itself onto his face, and he nodded his head enthusiastically. His perverted mind was going wild as images of his time with Rias came into light. "That is very good, Red Dragon Emperor," Michael said as he caught everyone's attention once more, and he decided it was time to officially introduce Naruto into the world. "Though we have one Dragon Emperor's opinion, I wish for the other. Naruto-kun, would you please introduce yourself?" "Hi." Naruto responded with a nod as his posture straightened and he adopted a militaristic look on his face. "I am Naruto Uzumaki, 4th Pillar General of the 4 Pillars of Heaven. I am also the White Dragon Emperor and the Red One's destined rival." That brought some shock into everyone's eyes as they looked at the White Dragon Emperor. Rias and her peerage openly showed their shock as their eyes widened into dramatic proportions. "We insulted a Pillar General." Rias thought in fear as she stole a glance at Naruto, who did not break his posture whatsoever and held it like that. "Now, Naruto-kun, how do you feel about peace?" Michael asked. "I believe it would be a great thing, Michael-sama." Naruto responded. "I do wish to get stronger, but there are always different ways to get stronger without hostilities between factions." "Then it is agreed upon," Surzicha said as the leaders prepared to proceed with the peace talks, but a sudden force stopped everyone's actions and froze everything in place. Naruto and a few others were no affected, including the leaders as well. Naruto looked around and decided to look out the window and saw people in robes appeared out of the massive magic circle in the sky. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto watched on as they blasted beams of magic towards their guards and they all disappeared once they made contact with the beams of magic shot their way. "Magicians," Michael murmured as he and the others had worked to put up a shield. "They must be using something to stop the time." "Asper," Rias shouted in realization as she continued to hold on to Issei, who had his boosted gear out. "We can send 2 people into their lines to retrieve Gasper and to restore the flow of time," Surzicha said as he caught everyone's attention. "With my power I can send 2 people there while we focus on the shield." "I'll go." Riaz volunteered automatically. Gasper is a member of my family, I'll go to retrieve him. I'll go with Butchu. Issei said next as he raised his hand. Surziches nodded and began forming a magic circle. Naruto was still glaring out the window and decided he needed to provide some assistance. Graffle, patch me through to everyone in the pillar present here. Naruto said as Graffle nodded his head and used his telepathy and connected his mind to his subordinates. 4th Pillar Division, I am taking command of this situation. Defend Kuoh Academy from all external forces and eliminate all that are attacking, no mercy. Graffle, Hecatith, come with me. We are holding off the enemies until they succeed. Naruto said as a pair of white dragon wings appeared behind his back and the window keeping them from the outside shattered into tiny pieces of glass and Naruto shot out of the building. Graffle and Hecatith both followed as they jumped out of the building in pursuit of their general. We must hurry, while Naruto-kun is buying us time. Gabriel spoke in haste as everyone nodded in agreement. The battle had just begun and they were outnumbered severely and it seemed as if the flow of mages had no end. They kept appearing from the magic circles situated in the sky, showing no signs of end. Outnumbered and seemingly overpowered by the sheer number of enemies, Naruto and his division were up for one hell of a ride. Naruto was soaring into the sky, avoiding energy beams sent his way by the mages, though they were getting annoying with the constant attacks sent his way. His forces were not far away and they could regroup soon enough once Riaz and Issei had completed their task of freeing their peerage member, causing time to temporarily stop. Having help only from Graffle and Hecatith for now, Naruto knew it would be enough. Mages were annoying, but most of them were ranged fighters, they had the advantage of range as they were soaring over the skies, and his 2 officers did not have the ability to fly. Restricting their movements to the ground, Naruto was left to fend for himself in the skies, though both Graffle and Hecatith could provide ranged support they were ultimately useless against so many mages. Partner, prepare for balance breaker. Naruto said as he felt the familiar sensation of magic wrapping around his body, not long his entire body was surrounded by a white light. Armor finally in place, Naruto stopped his charge and scanned the battlefield before him. His division were at a major disadvantage, but they were no normal division as they had faced war than this before. Graffle, gather our forces and have them regroup here. Naruto commanded as he scanned the battlefield once more. An endless wave of enemy forces would be upon them in minutes if they continued at their pace, though large in numbers they were weak individually. Hecatith, go with Graffle and take half of the forces and set up a defensive line around Kuoh Academy, we cannot allow them to attack the representatives. Of course Naruto-sama. Graffle and Hecatith both responded with a swift bow of their heads and they sprinted in the opposite direction. Naruto did not spare them another glace as he focused on the incoming force of enemies. Oh ho, seems like a bunch of ants are lining up to be stepped on. Albion said with a hint of glee in his voice as he looked through Naruto's eyes. Even if they were outnumbered, Albion had faith his partner could easily handle himself in this situation. Your forces will be arriving soon and with a demon by your side, there is nothing that can stop you. Behemoth is retired. But Jabberwock will do, having him by my side will bring forth our victory much quicker. Naruto replied, though he was confident in his abilities, it was always best to have someone beside him watching his back. But it doesn't mean the old man wouldn't mind a little bit of exercise. For now we are alone in this matter. Knowing these mages, they probably sent a wave ahead of their main force. Looks like you were right, partner. Here they come now. Albion said as a force of 10 or so magicians drew closer to their position. Shooting forward, Naruto moved in speeds no normal human could possibly possess and headed straight for the incoming force of 10 strong. Approaching the closest magician, Naruto punched him in the gut and grabbed hold of him with one hand, throwing him towards another magician who had turned to blast him. Naruto moved towards the others. None of the magicians held any sort of ability in hand-to-hand combat, so Naruto easily demolished the small scouting party without breaking a sweat, but the main force was visible in the horizon, and fighting that many would be foolish. It seemed they had the chance to amass their forces before using Gasper's sacred gear. Well partner, looks like we might have to give the Juggernaut drive a little test run, eh? Naruto questioned cheerfully as more and more magicians appeared and continued their approach towards the school with no resistance whatsoever. We will not use that. Albion stated firmly as his tone turned serious. Though you are a Uzumaki, the Juggernaut drive is too much for a mortal to handle. In exchange for my power to be released for a small duration of time, you give up your sanity. Just throwing that option out there. Naruto responded without a care in his tone. Besides, it's not likely they will push me to use that power. Now let's engage them in battle, might as well finish them off before they reach the school. Naruto flew towards them and accessed his other forms of magic. A massive green magic circle was created in front of him and a massive cyclone shot out from said circle. The devastating wind sent magicians in various directions, fighting to stay afloat. In response to his attack, they had sent some magic of their own, but due to the cyclone's sheer size, it did no harm to it whatsoever. Consuming some unlucky magicians, Naruto added more magic into his spell, and soon the already massive cyclone took on another size entirely. Naruto's eyes narrowed when his magic circle was forcefully shattered and his spell put to an end. Looking around for the source, Naruto found nothing but a large enemy force recovering from his previous spell. Though it did not last long as more and more magicians recovered, and soon Naruto found himself surrounded from all sides. Looking for a possible weakness in their formation, Naruto could not due to their massive numbers. One by one, beams of magic from every direction were sent towards him. Naruto quickly channeled his magic around his entire body, and a massive blue barrier erected itself surrounding him. Naruto's barrier continued to absorb all the magical attacks sent his way, but with so many attacks he knew it would not last very long. It being a temporary solution to the major issue he was facing, Naruto could not use Divine Dividing's ability, as it required him to have made physical contact with an enemy to drain his or her powers, but he had made no contact with those magicians as of yet. Adding more and more magic into his barrier, Naruto scanned around him and tried to find some way to escape from his situation, being surrounded from all sides with massive numbers keeping him from escaping. Expanding his barrier, Naruto continued to pour his magic into his defense, and it continued to expand it into a massive size that rivaled the main building of Kuoh Academy in size alone. Seeing as it had pushed enemies back, Naruto then stopped his flow of magic into his barrier and flew out of the barrier as it was penetrated from the outside. Flying higher and higher, Naruto avoided beams of magic sent his way as he continued to climb the skies. Naruto finally stopped when he had broke through the barrier of clouds blanketing the earth. The moon shone brightly in the night sky. Naruto could not help but marvel at its beauty before he refocused and directed his attention down once more. Moonlight reflected off of his armor, and his wings seemed to have shined brighter up here. A white magic circle appeared in front of him, followed by another and another. Until there were 4 magic circles in all. Naruto brought his fist back that was encased in a white light, and he punched the area in front of him and sent a beam of light out from the first magic circle, and as it passed through the other 3, the beam of light had changed into a massive size and shot down towards Earth. Vanishing Naruto. Vanishing light. As the beam of magical white energy descended upon the earth, magicians could not help but look at the incoming attack in a mixture of awe and fear. Helplessness was common among all as they watched their death descend upon them. None even tried to move. It was hopeless. Such an enormous attack consumed such an area, and it was impossible for them to escape. Silence reigned supreme as a white light consumed the entire battlefield. From the school, Gabriel and the others watched on in interest as they viewed the battle from a safe distance. Once Naruto had ascended into the skies, they did not expect such a thing to come back down. Impressed by the display of power, Surziches and Azazel could not help but wonder how much power Naruto held compared to Issei. A second thought flashed through Azazel's mind. He was truly impressed with Naruto's control over his sacred gear, and it really intrigued him, that sacred gear. Now he was really looking forward for the peace treaty to be signed. Having a peace treaty between factions would allow his study to soar into new heights if he got a hold of Naruto. That's one interesting sacred gear, Azazel commented with a smirk on his face. Gabriel and Michael both noticed this and shared an uncomfortable look before returning their gaze towards the battle. So much potential. Michael, don't know, he is a truly terrifying pillar general. Surziches said as he smiled. Naruto-kun has yet to show his true power. Michael replied with his usual smile, and he couldn't help but feel proud of his pillar general. Even though he had to sporadically force that position onto Naruto, in the end they had compromised and worked out a deal that was agreeable for both. All of a sudden the room was lit by a bright red flash, and Riaz and Issei both appeared, accompanied by an androgynous-looking male with platinum blonde hair and pinkish-violet eyes. Hairstyled in a bob cut, it also had fringes near his forehead. He also had pointed ears. Dressed in the Kuoh Academy female uniform, this was Gaspar Vladi, the bishop of Riaz Gremory. Ani-sama, we have returned. Riaz said as she looked around and followed the direction of their gazes and saw what they were staring at. The battlefield from before, where trees and buildings once sat, was demolished, and all that was left was a gaping crater on the earth below. At loss for words, Riaz and her now recovered peerage looked on in utter shock and a hint of fear. Someone had done that while they were away for such a short time. It was just astounding. Finally compassing herself and finding her voice, she spoke. "Oh, Ani-sama, who did that?" "Naruto Uzumaki." Surziches responded as he continued to bepize the effects of that single attack. Descending onto the ground, Naruto looked at his handiwork. So much destruction in his attacks, this one seemed to have topped all of them so far. Though he had wiped out a good portion of the enemy forces, Naruto knew they were only a portion of their total forces in all. Familiar faces came into light as members of the 4th Pillar Division poured into the battlefield surrounding him and quickly got into a defensive formation around him. Allowing his armor to vanish, Naruto scanned the battlefield once more and he felt a hand placed on his shoulder. Turning around, Naruto came face to face with Jabberwock. Jabberwock was a massive demon with a muscular frame and spiky crimson red hair with a long ponytail and also red eyes. Jabberwock also had a stubble on his chin and several scars across his face. The most prominent one was the traversal across his right eye down to his left cheek. "You didn't save any of them for me, Naruto," Jabberwock said with a smirk on his face as he looked at the destruction caused by his commander. Whistling in amazement, his eyes narrowed as he felt multiple magical sources appear a short distance from their position. "Naruto, you're getting rusty, some of them are still alive. Jabberwock, take command of the troops and eliminate the stragglers. Regroup with me when you have eliminated the rest of them," Naruto commanded as he turned and found Graffle among his men and directed his next command towards him. "Graffle, you're with me. I may be in need of your skills." Jabberwock and the troops rushed forward and moved towards the enemy in a quick pace. Naruto watched them leave before he too ran off in the opposite direction heading towards the school. He could have easily used the divine dividing to quicken his pace, but he did not wish to get ahead of himself and lose Graffle, his most reliable source of communication with his troops. Moving through trees, Naruto noticed that time around him was no longer stopped, deciding it was useless for him to give instructions as his troops, as he had faith in Jabberwock. "Oh ho, a battle," Naruto commented in interest as he slowed down his approach and watched the battle with interest. Azazel was battling against a devil from the wings that the woman possessed. This could be interesting. "It seems that the Red Dragon Emperor has succeeded," Graffle commented as he too watched the battle with growing interest. Naruto heard him and decided not to comment as he focused on the battle at hand. Neither spoke as their interest was growing by the minute. Seeing an artificial sacred gear appear in Azazel's hand, Graffle's eyes widened. "Amazing, an artificial sacred gear. Looks like it's based on our balance breaker," Naruto murmured. Azazel had truly outdone himself in creating a sacred gear of that caliber. "Well, looks like this battle is over." Graffle nodded his head in agreement as he witnessed Azazel slice off his own arm, then attack his opponent with a swift motion, finishing her off with a swift attack on his part. Looking towards his commander, he noticed the young Uzumaki had his eyes set on the Red Dragon Emperor. Deciding not to comment on that, he waited until Naruto finally spoke. "Graffle, we are moving, I wish to have a little scrimmage with the Red One." Nodding his head in response, Graffle followed Naruto as the two headed towards the leaders of the three factions. It didn't take long for them to arrive. Upon their arrival, Gabriel smiled at Naruto and greeted him with a hug which Naruto awkwardly returned, his eyes focused solely on Issei who was shifting nervously under his gaze. Releasing him, Gabriel followed his gaze and it fell towards Issei who was nervously avoiding their eyes. "Naruto-kun, it is good to see you safe," Michael said as he drew attention to himself, smiling at the young Uzumaki. "You did fantastic work out there keeping the magicians from approaching." "Thank you, Michael-sama," Naruto responded in kind as a smirk found its way upon his face. "Azazel-san, that was an interesting sacred gear you used there." "Ahahaha. You like that, brat?" Azazel asked as he released an amused chuckle. "That brat is my own creation. Issei Haidu, the Red Dragon Emperor," Naruto stated as he looked at Issei with the smirk still plastered onto his face. "And reincarnated devil and also the weakest Red Dragon Emperor in history. The battle between the Vanishing and Welsh Dragon has been happening for generations, and it seems that this time around the strongest White Dragon Emperor is paired with the weakest Red Dragon Emperor. Amusing, is it not?" The magicians that had attacked were completely wiped out by Naruto's forces, with Jabberwock slightly satisfying his thirst for battle, leaving no signs of the enemy afterwards. Naruto was now giddy with excitement. Naruto had been able to challenge Issei into a battle between dragons, and now he only had a day to prepare for that match, though it was more for Issei rather than him. Not a single leader saw Naruto in need of preparation against Issei, so given the day Naruto had spent that time consulting Albion of the Welsh Dragon's weakness. Even though Naruto knew that he had this battle in the bag, it was best to find information about his enemy. Even if this battle did not satisfy him, he would battle Issei later on when he grew. Naruto did not know why the Devil faction had agreed to such a thing, but he did not care. He had been allowed a battle against one of their servants, and it would easily give him a worthy opponent. After all, even if he was the weakest Red Dragon Emperor in all of history, Drake still rivaled Albion in power, no matter how much the Vanishing Dragon denied it. With equal terms of power, the outcome of this clash would prove interesting. By accepting this, there were only a few perks that the Devil faction would gain. They would be able to simply gauge his power level and allow their own heavenly dragon to gain some experience, but that was all that Naruto could think of as of now. Advantages and gains for his faction were minimum as well, but one key advantage they would gain was fear. Showing off power of one of their own would increase fear their enemies possessed. The show of power was what Naruto claimed his actions to be, knowing that Gabriel and Michael both disapproved of unnecessary violence. Even if he did not care, he simply was not untouchable. Being a high-ranking member in heaven, he was still vulnerable, and if he was seen as an enemy, he could not fight off against an entire faction alone. Though he was not alone, he had loyal members in his pillar, but once more against an entire faction, it would not have been pleasant. Naruto did not wish to go against the Angel faction, but he also had goals in mind that clashed with their ideals. Having been present in the faction since Dulio had found him, Naruto didn't want to disappoint the one who had taken care of him when his parents were killed, nor did he wish to disappoint the ones who had helped him along the way. Now residing in the church which was abandoned a while ago, his men had been able to fix its former condition and set up a base of operations there, more so for his specific pillar than the church itself. Naruto was there with his pillar standing by and getting ready for the match against Issei, who they believed was going to be easily defeated. Jabberwock didn't even acknowledge the Red Dragon Emperor by his shared title with his heavenly dragon. That was a big deal. Jabberwock did not acknowledge anyone as a threat aside from a few field officers, Naruto, and a majority of others. Even Jabberwock acknowledged Albion as a threat, but if he dismissed Drake as no threat, that spoke volumes of how pathetic he thought of Issei. The difference of power between the Red and White Dragon Emperors were astounding, not just a mere level of power. No, Naruto was leagues above Issei, and the blonde exorcist had not yet stopped growing, while Issei was growing at a slow pace, and it seemed as if he would stay at that weak state for quite some time. It seems you are getting ready for your little spar against the Red Dragon Emperor, Naruto-chan. A voice spoke out suddenly as Naruto leaned back in his seat and a smile played on his lips. Naruto-chan, it seems that you aren't going to bother preparing against the Red One whatsoever. You're here, old man Behemoth. Naruto replied with his smile widening. Turning to face the source of the voice, Naruto spotted an elderly man with white hair and a mustache and beard to go along with it. Are you going to watch my little match against the Red One? Jabberwock and I both will be there in case any devils think they should interfere. The newly named Behemoth responded with a grin of his own. Walking towards Naruto, Behemoth tossed the blonde wrapped object which Naruto caught and gave him a curious look. I got you a little present, I found that little mask you wanted. Naruto's eyes widened in shock and wonder as H quickly tore open the wrapping paper like a child of Christmas Day, hands touching the content inside. Naruto lifted the object for a better look at it. The object was a mask, not just any mask but the Shinigami mask, or also known as the Death Reaper mask. The Shinigami mask was a sealing technique developed by the Uzumaki clan that was used to summon the death god himself and release the souls inside his stomach, a powerful mask that was very powerful, that required no sacrifice for summoning a god to do their bidding. Now with this mask, Naruto had now collected another one of the lost artifacts of his clan, and there were none left to his knowledge. The Uzumaki clan being a mysterious clan, they had secrets hidden even from members of their own, and with Kushina dying before she could pass down the secret she knew to Naruto, Naruto set out on his own to find them. Thank you, old man. Naruto said as his smile widened further. Placing his mask down, Naruto turned to Behemoth and spoke in his usual tone. I can't thank you enough, Behemoth Jiji. With this I just might be able to bring back the Uzumaki clan to its former glory. Behemoth smirked at that. The reason he chose to follow Naruto was odd. Naruto himself was a powerful human. Behemoth knew about the Uzumaki body that allowed them go through some horrible situations and live through it. That was what had intrigued him so much. This human had something others did not. Behemoth thought that Naruto held something else aside from his sacred gear, though he did not know what. Behemoth wished to. That was the first reason for following him, but now Behemoth found another to follow this blonde, Naruto's ambition. Behemoth was the only one that knew of his true goal, to surpass the greatest existence and take the Great Red's place. It was finally time for the battle. Naruto was now facing Issei in the fields of Kuoh Academy. There all the leaders of the three factions were there watching. Michael and Gabriel were there to support Naruto. Surziches and Serapho were there to simply support Issei, though they wished to see Naruto's strength as well. Exiled was there alone to see the power between the Red and White Dragon Emperor. This allowed him to collect data further for his research. Exiled was a scientist and to collect data further was something he would have dropped his activities to do. Naruto and Issei facing off would simply give him data on balance breakers from the strongest and weakest dragon emperors in all of history. This was a chance in a lifetime. Riaz and the rest of her peerage were there as well. They were watching with nervousness consuming their every actions. How could they not be nervous for one of their own when he was facing off against an enemy who could wipe out an entire army with one blow? It frightened them how powerful others were, and Naruto wasn't even much older than them and younger in Riaz and Akeno's situation. Not only that, but he was a human. Are you ready for this, Red One? Naruto asked as the divine dividing appeared behind him and lifted him off the ground. Looking at Issei, Naruto saw the nod in confirmation, and he too nodded in response. A flash of light consumed Issei's left arm as a crimson gauntlet with green gems decorating it covered his arm. Then let's begin. Naruto launched himself towards Issei, who backed up quickly to avoid Naruto's charge. Failing to do so, Naruto had managed to sink a punch directly on Issei's stomach before sending another punch at the reincarnated devil's face. The impact from his blow sent Issei tumbling backwards. Naruto did not pursue his prey as he looked on in disappointment. Shaking his head, Naruto stretched his right hand and a small magical circle appeared in front of it and the magic energy Issei had sent his way was stopped just as it made contact. Issei was not done yet as he rushed forward and sent a punch towards Naruto, who simply leaned to the side and kicked Issei on the stomach, allowing Issei to continue his assault. Naruto merely floated there. Issei picked himself up and rushed Naruto again, though his methods weren't the best he was trying at least. Naruto was not even trying to fight Issei, he was not even a threat to Naruto. It was like a mouse trying to fight an elephant. That was a foolish thing to do as a simple stomp could easily flatten the mouse. Yet here he was trying for God knows why. Naruto looked at him in a new light. Whatever drove him to fight must have meant a ton to him. To fight someone leagues apart was something only the bravest or dumbest of men could do. Naruto was hoping Issei was the former. With that trait, then the battle against the Red Dragon Emperor would have been a tad bit more amusing. So tell me, Red One, why are you trying so hard? Naruto asked as he stopped a punch from Issei and held him in place as his visage shifted into a curious one. There is always a reason a man is fighting so hard. But Issei grunted as he tried to free his gauntlet-worn hand from Naruto's grip. Progress was made as Issei began trying to wiggle his fist out. For Butchu's Oppai. Naruto was shocked beyond words as he blinked a few times trying to wrap his mind around the statement his destined rival had just made. Issei had been able to free himself as Naruto focused his mind on his statement and sent a punch at Naruto, who compassed himself and leaned to the side and flew backwards, getting some distance from him. Issei. It seemed as if Issei had another idea as he rushed forward to attack Naruto, and a massive white magic circle appeared before Issei. The Red Dragon Emperor's eyes widened in shock and fear as a blast of white magic sent him flying back. Rias looked on in shock and fear as she watched her pawn soaring through the sky. She tried to rush forward, but Jabberwock stopped her before she could reach the battlefield. She gave him a glare and flared her magic, but Jabberwock merely looked at her with a bored look on his face. Blaring a small bit of his own magic, Jabberwock dwarfed the tiny bit of power that Rias possessed, shocking the surrounding individuals and Rias alike. Naruto won't be disturbed. Once he's done with his little match I can have my own with him. Jabberwock said as he blocked Ria's passage towards the battlefield and looked down at her with boredom. Ria's peerage quickly ran to help her as two blades reached up towards Jabberwock's neck and a punch was directed at his stomach. Not even blinking an eyelash, a wave of dark red energy blasted Rias and her peerage away. Surziches and Seraphil both turned to face Jabberwock with frowns upon their faces. Is Naruto-chan still fooling around? A voice resounding around the clearing, and the two Satans looked around trying to find the source of the voice. They stopped when the sound of walking was audible, and a simple elderly man walked towards them with a smile on his face. Jabberwock, isn't Naruto-chan done with his little fight? Behemoth Samus Surziches mumbled in utter shock and fear gripped his entire body as he looked at the elderly man with a fear-consumed face. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.